This looks very, very uncomfortable for him. And, I'm the first to admit it looks a bit uncomfortable for the Conservative Party as well, for obvious reasons.
The Conservative Party is facing questions over its decision to keep more than £15 million given by its biggest ever donor, Frank Hester, after former employees made a fresh series of allegations against him. Hester is alleged to have referred to a staff member as the token Muslim, imitated people of Chinese descent, and remarked that one individual was attractive for a black woman. That is according to former employees who spoke to The Guardian. Mark Garnier is the Conservative candidate for the Wyre Forest and joins us on the evening edition. Good evening to you.
Evening, Kate.
Is this a story that you hoped had gone away, Mark? Why would the Conservative Party accept another donation from Frank Hester, already such a contested individual, after these allegations were made public?
I think that's right. I mean, to be honest with you, these latest allegations, Kate, are news to me. So I haven't seen these latest ones. But I think, look, I completely understand why people can feel very annoyed about it. As I say, it's breaking news to me, the latest ones. But I think at the time, when they had the earlier ones about Diane Abbott, clearly they were very uncomfortable. Rishi Sunak made a comment about that, and I must say, I thought that was the end of it.
Yeah, and look, we can be in no doubt, can we, that these are racist comments. The comments being alleged to have been made by Frank Hester are racist comments.
I think in the case of the first one, if look, I mean, I'm being entirely honest with you. I think in the case of the first one, it may have been just an unfortunate sort of silly remark which he shouldn't have made. But I think, if it's proven to be a habitual problem, then maybe this is a different incident altogether. But as I say, the latest ones are breaking news to me. So I haven't really had a chance to really sort of think long and hard about this. But there's no doubt about it. I mean, at the end of the day, what we don't want to have is racism in our society. We've done an awful lot over the many years in order to try to drive this out. What we don't necessarily want to have is overt racism taking us back to the 1960s.
Yeah. And so we need to call it out. And so calling a staff member, these are the allegations, remember, a token Muslim, imitating people of Chinese descent, saying that one individual was attractive for a black woman. These are, we need to call them out. We need to be very, very honest and very clear if we're to try and, drill down into racism in this country and to set the standard. And this should be for people of all political colours, all people. We do need to condemn comments like that as racist, don't we? We need to be really clear about that.
Yes, I think we do. As I say, I mean, I think Frank Hester does, like anybody else who's accused of this, does need to have an opportunity to come back and say, kind of put their side of the argument. But on the face of it, Kate, as you said, this looks very, very uncomfortable for him. And I'm the first to admit it looks a bit uncomfortable for the Conservative Party as well, for obvious reasons.
Well, it looks uncomfortable, and if those comments are true, then they are racist comments. Let's talk about the new poll today from Redfield and Wilton. This is the second poll now that has seen the gap between you and Reform UK at just 2 points. It puts you at your lowest ever level. This is joint with the Liz Truss era. Can we be honest and ask about what success looks like for the Conservative Party at the next election?
At the general election? Look, I suppose I'd make a couple of points. I mean, to answer your question directly, we're not fighting to come a good second. We're in this election to win it, and we're coming up with proposals and policies that we hope will first of all attract voters to us, but will also create an image of what a Rishi Sunak government with his own mandate will look like. But look, on the poll itself, there's 2% difference, and although you haven't let me know what the difference is between Labour and Conservative, I've been out and about in my constituency. Now, the last election, it was a relatively good result for us. We got 65% of the vote against Labour's 22%, and of course, we didn't have a hard right candidate in the form of either UKIP or Reform at that time. But what's interesting is we've been out and about now for 10 days or so, knocking doors. I'm struggling to understand how these polls are saying that we're in such dire trouble. It doesn't feel like that on the door. And bear in mind, this is now the 6th general election I've fought. This doesn't feel like a disaster. This, as I say, on the doorsteps, it feels very different. And I'm trying to understand, kind of what the difference is between these opinion polls that are coming out and what we're seeing amongst people who, are part of our community that we're talking to. And I've been talking to a few colleagues about this, and they're coming back with the same sort of sense. They're not sensing that we're going to be sort of down in the high teens or low 20s. And they certainly don't get the sense that Reform are doing that well either.
I just wonder as well if you're door knocking someone, people, we are famed for being polite as Brits, and perhaps people are just being kinder to you, kind to you. Perhaps they don't want to lay into you on the doorstep. And I know people have done in the past, and people will always do, but generally they want to hear what you've got to say, but actually they might not want to confess to you that they're not going with you. They're going for a different party instead, whether that's Reform, Labour or anyone else. Look, you won by more than 20,000 votes in 2019 in the Wyre Forest. You took 65% of the vote share. It's a seat you've held for 14 years. And according to MRP polling this week, you are expected to lose to the Labour candidate. They are 7 points ahead, Labour, in your constituency.
In my constituency, yeah.
Yeah, how does that make you feel? I mean, sort of, laughing there. I mean, how do you deal with that as the Conservative candidate? How do you deal with what must at times feel inevitable to you? It must put you in a tricky position.
Not well. It doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not going to give up the campaign now because of an opinion poll. I think there are two or three important things I'd say. So first of all is I know the community better. And my association and my councillors and all the people we work with know the community better than perhaps the polls. I suppose the second point is that both door knocking and opinion polls, as you so rightly say, they people can be saying things which don't necessarily reflect how they would vote. And I think that when we have, when people are asked an opinion poll, their answer has no consequence. It doesn't mean there's going to be a change of government. They can just sort of say, look, I'm really fed up with the Conservatives. I'm not going to vote for them. I'm going to vote for somebody else instead. So that's the second point. It doesn't matter what they say because it's not actually a vote on a ballot. I think the third point is that, as I say, this is my sixth election campaign. You can only really be certain about how people are thinking in the last week of the election. I've found that by the time you get to the final Saturday or Sunday, that's when people have really made up their minds. So we're getting quite a lot of people who are sort of saying, oh, I haven't really thought about it, By the way, I'm also getting quite a lot of people who are saying that they are cross with what's been going on. They're cross with Partygate. They're cross with micro-government.
There is massive change from having such a strong majority, Mark, to being 7 points behind Labour in your constituency. Surely that's not necessarily about your local performance. In fact, I think it's probably not much to do at all with your local performance, but it is about the Conservative Party and how your party as a whole has damaged this for you.
What the point I was going to make was that what's not coming across is that Labour are winning it. So if you go back to 1997, it was very clear that the Conservatives were on their knees, but it was also very clear that Tony Blair was immensely popular. What I'm finding is that people are not convinced by Labour at all. So look, I completely accept that people are they're cross with us, they're annoyed about it, as say Liz Truss and Boris. They're angry about that, but they are also telling me that they want to know what Labour is all about. They're not going to vote for Labour unless they actually put up some policies. I mean, they've actually got to come up with some ideas. They've actually got to sort of respond to this £2,000 tax rise that we keep having this argument about over the last 2 or 3 days since the debate the other day. So people aren't being sold Labour as a viable alternative yet. If Labour suddenly come out,
we can't. Yeah, but again, one poll is one poll, but we've seen consistent polling now, and I think some of our listeners will be listening to this and saying, "Come on, Mark, Labour have been stubbornly ahead, significantly ahead in the polling." It would, to be quite frank with you, take a miracle. It would take something catastrophic for Labour to not sew up this general election. And I completely admit nothing is ever done until it's done. But I think probably what is more questionable is the size of Labour's majority more than the fact that they're actually going to do it.
Well, we'll find out on the 5th of July. I mean, at the end of the day, we can speculate as much as we like, Kate. And I'm very happy to come on as the opinion polls change for the better or the worse for us or Labour. But at the end of the day, as I say, the only thing that I can go by, I can look at these opinion polls, I can sit down and try and analyse them, I can look at electoral calculus or UK polling report or all of these other websites that we all follow very closely, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's when you are in the streets, when you're talking to people, when you talk to people you both know and don't know. It's there's a it doesn't it's not coming across like this. The
Yeah.
the number we're getting on the doorstep. As I say, I'm not trying to pretend that people aren't cross with what's happened over some occasions. But as I say, at the end of the day, what is absolutely clear is that Keir Starmer is not winning this election. We're losing it, but Keir Starmer is
Okay.
not winning.
All right. Look, one more thing to run by you. Channel 4's Paul McNamara has just said, this is on Richard Holden's selection to a safe seat in Basildon and Billericay. There's a 20k majority there for the Conservatives, or was at the last election. A cabinet minister has commented on this. He's a tosser. It's appalling. That's what a cabinet minister has said about the parachuting in of the Conservative chair, Richard Holden, into that safe seat. What is your
Okay,
response to that?
we'll have to use language like that before the 9 o'clock watershed. But
Apologies if anyone's offended, but I'm just reading out verbatim a tweet by...
yeah, no, no. Look, I don't. So I'm not aware of what's been going on in Basildon and Billericay. I mean, I was aware that Richard Holden had got it, but I gather it's there's some slightly unusual processes that have been going on. Look, I mean, Richard was elected in 2019. I'm getting to know him. He's working incredibly hard as a chairman. I think he seems to me to be a good guy. As I said, I don't know him particularly well because obviously, a lot of the time when we were getting to know each other, we were isolated from each other through lockdowns. But look, I think this is something which the party would have to answer rather than necessarily me as a humble but hardworking campaigning backbencher in a different part of the country.
Yeah, look, thank you very much for being with us. We always appreciate your honesty. Mark Garnier, who is Conservative candidate for the Wyre Forest. Good to speak to you, Mark. Thank you. And the full candidate list for Wyre Forest is as follows. Mark Garnier for the Conservatives, John Davis for the Green Party, Bill Hopkins, Reform UK, Shazzu Miah for the Liberal Democrats, Vicky Smith for Labour, and Lee Whitehouse standing as an independent.